Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to the special meeting of the Ascension Parish Planning Commission of May 29th, 2019. I would ask that everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, let the record reflect that all commissioners, with the exception of Mr. Furman and Mr. Christie, are present. Mr. Furman will not be present tonight. However, Mr. Christie, when I spoke to him about an hour ago, said he was on his way, so I expect him to be here. Can we get an introduction of the staff, please?
Stacy Webb, Secretary for the Planning Commission.
O'Neill Parrington, Assistant District Attorney, sitting in for Cody Morton tonight.
Jerome Fournier, Director of Planning and Development.
Eric Poche, Parish Planner.
Thank you. All right, we are going to get right to the public hearing to approve or deny the Ascension Parish Master Land Use Plan. Before we begin, I would just like a couple of reminders. There are many people here, all of whom, or most of whom, probably want to speak tonight and be heard, and you will have your opportunity. I will ask that everybody remain in order so that everybody has the opportunity to speak and be heard. This is obviously a debate that may arise some passions, and that's not a problem. It may arise difference of opinions, and that's part of our American way. But please be respectful of those people, even those people with whom you disagree, so that we can have a full and open debate on this. I am going to begin giving some introductory remarks and reading the commission that is, or reading the resolution that is before us tonight into the record. Then Mr. Fournier will give some opening remarks as the Director of Planning and Development, and then we will hear from CPEX, and then we will get to the public comments and eventually the vote, and that will be the order which we will proceed tonight. So I would like to start out on this master land use plan and address some of the issues that I've heard at these meetings over the past several months and at the public meetings that I've heard. Last month, or I should say earlier this month on May 8th, Ms. Catherine Gottbeld stood up before us and started out with a statement of Ascension Parish, beware. And as she read through the master plan, she told us that this master plan will tell citizens what you do with your property, and what you do with your property will be limited. And that is true, but that is the truth of the of the land development code that is currently in place. There are restrictions on the use of property. There are restrictions on how property can be developed. Those are laws that are passed by our parish council, laws that we must adhere to. This is nothing new. We are not telling anybody how you are going to use your land or how you're going to do your land. This is a plan for moving forward. Ms. Teresa Robert addressed us earlier this month and said something that I wholeheartedly agree with. We were told a majority of the citizens said they moved to Ascension Parish for its rural character, quality of life, good schools. They choose not to live in a city. And I think that is very true. We are a parish that has seen unprecedented growth over the last several years. And just to put that in perspective, the state as a whole has lost about 60,000 people over the last 3 years, yet Ascension Parish is not only one of the fastest growing parishes in the state, it's one of the fastest growing counties in the country. And you have to ask yourself, why is that and what is growth? What exactly is the growth that we're talking about? Well, it's businesses, but more importantly, people moving to Ascension Parish. Why are they moving to Ascension Parish? I don't think it's all that mysterious. We have the best school system in the state. Compared to our neighbors up north in Baton Rouge, where if you can't afford a private school or you can't get your child into a magnet school, you're left dealing with inner city schools where you're not sure your child's even going to be safe. Baton Rouge has been dealing with this problem for a number of years. They had Central depart from the city of Baton Rouge several years ago. Right now there is a fight for St. George. They want to defect from Baton Rouge and get out of living in the city of Baton Rouge. I think that's going to be tremendously important to us in Ascension Parish as that moves forward. Because if St. George passes, I think growth slows down in Ascension Parish. because people who would otherwise leave East Baton Rouge Parish have that choice. Conversely, if St. George fails, I think growth will continue because people want to move to a place where they can live in peace, their children will be safe, they can go to school at good schools, and that's what people want. And that's what Ascension Parish has to offer. Now, how do you deal with that growth? You can't stop it. We can't build a wall at Bayou Manchac and say, you can't come in. We can't take Trump's wall and put it at Bayou Manchac. We have to account for it some way. And what this master plan does is it accounts for the expected growth that is coming. We're not encouraging growth. We couldn't if we wanted to. It is market forces. It is the quality of life that we have. And the master plan is designed to manage it and retain that quality of life that we have. That's what it's there for. That's what we want. And so as we move forward with this, I've reviewed this master plan very carefully. And I can tell you my initial impression, and I'm coming here tonight with my mind open, but I'm in favor of it. Because why? Because we're way beyond. It should have been done several years ago. Are there other concerns like infrastructure? Absolutely. Infrastructure is a big barrel of worms because you look at how do you build roads? Well, does the parish have any money to do it? Not a whole lot. Their budget is tight. Go up to the state level. If you can only look at Highway 42 and the ping pong battle that's gone on 42 to see the politics involved in doing that. Go up to the federal level. Well, they're building interstates. They're not concerned about Highway 30 or Highway 44 or Highway 42 or Corner View Road. And so infrastructure is a concern, and there has been strides made to build infrastructure, particularly last year. And we saw it just last month, or earlier this month, when a subdivision came before us, and because of the new traffic impact studies, we approved that subdivision, but it will probably never get built because they can't afford to put the infrastructure in that's required by the traffic impact studies. Does that have an effect on growth? It does. Does it have an effect on infrastructure? Absolutely. Because the subdivisions that can afford that through quality or through quantity are going to start doing that, and the smaller ones are going to go away. But right now, what we have before us, or what we've had for the number of years that I've been on this commission, is kind of a hodgepodge of land use with no definable plan, a plan that has been outdated for a number of years. And what this plan does is it gets us updated. And it's not the end. It's the beginning because it has to be revised as the parish changes. If growth slows down, the plan can be changed to address that. If growth accelerates, the plan can be changed. It is a plan. It is a framework to work within, and is something that we recommend to the parish council or don't recommend to the parish council, but ultimately is not legislation, and it does not have the force of law. Nothing occurs without the parish council legislating these changes into effect. This is just the starting point and long overdue. That being said, I'm here with an open mind. I've listened to all of the comments, and I will listen tonight to all the comments. My preference is initially to vote in favor of this plan because I think it's good for Ascension Parish and because I think it's needed. This is the resolution that we will be voting on tonight. This is entitled The Resolution of the Ascension Parish Planning Commission to adopt the 2019 Ascension Master Land Use Plan. Whereas, Chapter 17, Section 17-1 of the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances creates the Ascension Parish Planning Commission and vests said commission with the responsibilities delineated in Louisiana Revised Statute Section 33:101 et sequentia. And whereas Article 4, Section 4-18 of the Ascension Parish Home Rule Charter references the adoption, amendment, and extension of an official plan for the physical development of the unincorporated areas of the parish, and further provides for the creation of a planning commission to enact said plan in accordance with the laws of the state of Louisiana. And whereas Louisiana Revised Statute 33:106 specifically grants a parish planning commission the authority to make and adopt a master plan for the physical development of the unincorporated territory of the parish. And whereas the 2019 Master Land Use Plan is intended to capture the vision of Ascension's citizens and translate that vision into reality through the adoption and implementation of strategies that will guide future development. And whereas the 2019 Ascension Parish Master Land Use Plan includes 11 chapters which set forth and include but is not strictly limited to the vision forward concerning the land use in Ascension Parish, a current profile of the parish, land use designation considerations, housing and neighborhood service recommendations, transportation and mobility assessments and recommendations, drainage, floodplain management and wastewater assessments and recommendations, recreation and open space recommendations, economic development and redevelopment recommendations, and strategic implementation plan. And whereas the Ascension Parish Planning Commission, assisted by the Center for Planning Excellence, CPEX, has held numerous community meetings to obtain a public input in the creation of said plan. And whereas it is the intention of the Ascension Parish Planning Commission that the 2019 Ascension Parish Master Land Use Plan replace any prior existing master land use plans adopted by Ascension Parish. And whereas in accordance with Louisiana Revised Statute 33:108, a public hearing was properly noticed and held on May 29, 2019. At such time, the Ascension Parish Planning Commission received comments from the public with regard to the 2019 Ascension Parish Master Land Use Plan. Now, therefore, be resolved that the Ascension Parish Planning Commission, by the Ascension Parish Planning Commission, that it does hereby adopt the 2019 Ascension Parish Land Use Plan with all attachments, maps, and references made therein. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Ascension Parish Planning Commission Chairman is hereby authorized to file a copy of the 2019 Ascension Parish Master Land Use Plan with the Office of the Ascension Parish Council, the governing authority for the Parish of Ascension, to the record, to record the same with the Ascension Parish Clerk of Court, and to effectuate any other requirements set forth within Louisiana Revised Statute Section 33:101 et sequentia, as said requirements relate to the procedure for adopting and enacting a master plan. This resolution having been submitted to a vote, the vote thereon was as follows, with blanks for the yeas, nays, abstentions, and absences. And the resolution was declared adopted on this 29th day of May, 2019, signed by me, Matthew Pryor, Ascension Parish, or Chairman of Ascension Parish Planning Commission. With that said, I will turn it over to Mr. Fournier to give us a few introductory remarks. Mr. Fournier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. The parish would like to extend thanks to everyone who participated in the process. Parish council members, planning commissioners, stakeholder committee members, parish staff, and the Ascension Parish School Board who granted us access to the future homeowners and parents in our parish, and a special thanks to the general public who provided input into the process. This plan is forward-looking, but based on the attributes we have here in Ascension Parish, and especially the generous people who live here. We are the fastest-growing parish in the state and have been since Hurricane Katrina, with the exception of 1 year during that period when St. Bernard Parish exceeded us with property owners moving back to that parish. All right. The plan itself covers a 23-year period, and the population projections that were part of the plan were based on projections provided by the Capital Region Planning Commission. They were not ours. They were provided to us by that organization in Baton Rouge. And that anticipates, in that 23-year period, 52,000 people moving into the parish. That equates to 2,200 people per year moving into the parish. But I'd like to throw some statistics at you when it comes to the youth of Ascension Parish. The majority of the growth is coming from within the parish, not outside of the parish. These are not people moving into the parish from elsewhere. They're growth within the parish. Our high schools have graduated in 2014, 1,339 students. 2015, 1,343 students. 2016, 1,436 students. 2017, 1,452 students. And 2018, 1,508 students. And 2019, over 1,500 students again, all right? With that, planning is necessary in the parish, and especially as it relates to the current master plan that's in the Code of Ordinances that is much outdated. With that, I'd like to turn it over to our lead consultant on this project, Janet Thorpe with CPEX, to give her presentation tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Tonight, go to the next slide. Oh, I guess I have a control. Tonight, we're going to give some real short presentation on the plan, because think we've been here monthly, and I didn't want to repeat everything that we've talked to you in the past. But we do want to talk to you about the comments that we've received since this, in the month that this plan has been out and reviewed. We have a number of them, and we want to respond to those. And then we've also had 3 comments since we sent that list of comments to you last week, and so we want to talk over those. So present everything publicly that we have been presented and respond to those. And then take comments, and then you will have ability to talk and ask any questions, and then have the commission action, as Mr. Parish said. So y'all have seen this process throughout, and basically we did visioning workshops, figure out what we have now, where we're going, where we want to be in the future, develop scenarios, got input on those, and then had the draft plan, which has now been out for about a month. Throughout the process, we've had 3 workshops, and those were the meetings where we had maps and people worked on those. We've had 6 open houses, and as Jerome said, 4 high school workshops where we got some great input as well. So we've had the plan available for a month, and then we also have widely distributed information on how to comment on the plan. So some of the things that we've done, just to make sure that everyone understands how much we've really been encouraging people to comment and give us their input on the draft. We presented the plan at the open houses on May 30th or on April 30th and May 1st. We posted it online on May 1st and sent out an email blast to everyone who has signed up at our meetings or have indicated on our website that they want information. We also printed reference copies and put them in the Parish Governmental Complex, the courthouse in Donaldsonville, and then all 4 of the libraries. So if people didn't want to download them or look at them on the computer, there was printed copies available to be looked at. We then started taking comments on the website. We had 3 different ways that people could mail it, the old-fashioned way, email us comments, or comment through the website. So as soon as those started coming in, we logged those in and have created a master log that we sent to y'all last week, excuse me. And then after we sent that to you, we posted that online and then sent again another email blast out to let people know to look at that. So just to kind of summarize the plan, there are 11 chapters, and then there's 6 of them that are the topical chapters that are really the meat of the recommendations, and those are land use, housing, transportation, drainage, floodplain management, and wastewater, recreation, and economic development. And those chapters all have a vision, goals, and strategies that are really the meat of the plan that will guide the future development. So we also have the vision map, and this is a general map showing land use types that could occur in the future. Oops. And with those are descriptions, and I know that we've seen these a number of times, but we have rural residential, estate subdivision, residential neighborhood are the 3 residential land development types, and then neighborhood hubs, commercial retail office, and then employment, which includes industrial and business park. So the comments that we've had to date were provided in writing, and so what's in those logs were either provided in writing at the April 30th and May 1st open houses, so we recorded everything that was written down there. We've had several phone calls and then a number of comments through the web comment form. So we've had general and specific comments through the web, but we also had a person who attended the open house who taped it and did a partial transcript and annotation of it, and so we went ahead and put that in the log so that you could see that as well. She also did some next door posting and sent them in to us, and she sent them in there. We wanted to get those in, so y'all had access of those for the last week. So the comment log comes in 5 tables. The first table, and so basically we categorized them. The first table were all the map comments that we received, and I'm going to go through those individually, just because I want to explain why the rationale is for making changes and not making changes. The pink table are recommended changes, and then the purple items are no change is recommended, and most of that is because it's covered in the plan already, many of those comments. The blue are transportation master plan comments. There was a lot of comments on, especially I think Highway 44. Those have been passed on to the transportation department and the consultants doing that transportation plan. And then there were some general comments that we really couldn't respond to, and those are in green, that were just kind of opinions and general comments. So the first section that I want to go through, and I'll move through these pretty quickly, but if I need to slow down, just let me know. The map change requests that we are not recommending changes to the vision map. The first one is that they'd like to see a buffer between the residential neighborhood and employment areas at the corner of 44 and 22. So that's in this area right here in the employment area. You can see a little bit better there. And we are not recommending a change there only because the text of the plan covers the reason. All of the desire is to have some buffers between the residential and the employment area uses. And the plan specifically in the employment development type, it reads, due to the special transportation requirements and potential adjacency issues, attention to design, screening, and open space buffering is necessary when employment areas are adjacent to residential uses. So that would be considered when you have, say, a zoning case come in to change to employment uses in that area. I want to reiterate through all of these that this plan does not change zoning. It's not a zoning change at all. There's many of the comments that we've had seem to imply that we're changing the use on land. This is just an overlay of what in the future could occur there. The plan also specifically in strategy 3.2 talks about maintaining and strengthening neighborhoods, making them attractive to current and new residents by ensuring appropriate development transitions adjacent to new neighborhoods, requiring new development to be sensitive to its surroundings and density, form, and size, particularly when adjacent to existing residential areas and historic assets, requiring parking lot location, configuration, access points, and screening to offset any negative impacts, and providing buffers between residential and employment uses through landscape screening standards. So we feel like this issue here is specifically addressed in the plan as it is currently presented. The next comment is, again, on 44 and 22, and the person would like the lots that are large lots that she lives behind to stay that way. It's the same as the third comment, so we bundled those together. And so the issue there is that those should be labeled as estate rather than neighborhood. This is the general location, and this is the specific location of those lots. And the development pattern, because of the development surrounding that area, is really residential neighborhood. And so, and it does allow larger lots. There's not a restriction on the size of lots, so it would allow 5 acres, 10 acres, as large a lot as you'd want to have in that area. So we're recommending no change on that request. The next request is at Highway 30 and 941. That is not a good location for a neighborhood hub. That's generally in where you can see where the arrow is pointing, and a closer view of it here. And that neighborhood hub is really over airline and Highway 30. It's a little further to the east, but in general, these are really generalized areas. They aren't lot specific, so we feel like it's a general enough type of area that we aren't recommending a change on it. Another comment, everything east of Highway 431 should remain rural. That's the general area, and we think that this is the area that they're talking about. And so the recommendation is to retain it as is, because the estate, there are estate type developments in the estate area, and then there's a neighborhood development pattern. And we really tried not to make uses non-conforming in neighborhoods that are already existing. The intent isn't to do that without addressing those issues as well. The sixth comment is too much density on Highway 941. This needs to be rural residential. The original comment we interpreted to be the area in red, but after we posted this comment, the commenter sent us another email that said, no, I'm really talking about that green dot right there. So it's nice when this process works and we can really drill down and figure out what the issues are being discussed, and the arrow's pointing to generally where it is. This is the new comment that we received. So we are, so it's the little area in neighborhood. And again, similarly to the other, the previous request, we're recommending that it stay residential neighborhood, which does allow as large lots as you'd like to do, because the general development pattern in that area is residential neighborhood. The seventh comment is to change this area from employment to residential neighborhood. And this is generally, it's on the West Bank, and it's an area that's a certified site. This is an area that really could go either way, residential or employment, but since it's a certified site, we have recommended that it stay that way. We had some map that was sent to us kind of anonymously. We weren't able to make a recommendation on this because we didn't know exactly what the request was on it. The eighth request is, okay, then the last one we have is one that we do recommend a change to. It's up in the northwest part of the parish. And the request is that it is all, right now it's shown in residential neighborhoods, it is all very large lot, and the particular area that we looked at is in a floodplain. And so we went back and are recommending this change to that area to incorporate the drainage patterns that are there. So those are the map changes that we have. The second series of changes are on the pink table. And I can't see that far, so I'm going to... the first one that's listed is that we add the skate park that's in Donaldson to the plan. We're doing that. That we review lighting and noise standards when we look at the zoning, or when the zoning and subdivision ordinances are looked at, and include that as a review. And so, just as Chairman Pryor said, this does not change any ordinance requirements, but we do have a list in here of items that should be looked at to make the ordinance consistent with the plan. There was also a request that they look at undergrounding utilities, and the current subdivision ordinance currently requires undergrounding power lines, so we didn't take any action on that. The third request was that that we include some right to farm type recommendations. The rural development type does include retail and commercial uses that support farming and agricultural uses. So we think that, but we don't have that in the list of ordinance provisions that should be looked at, and so we want to put that in the list as well, to make sure that things like farmers markets, if people have acreage and want to sell in farmers markets, or have feed stores and that kind of thing, that those be permitted in the rural development type. And again, this plan does not make that happen. It has to be an ordinance change to make that happen. We also had a copy editor read this, and so they made punctuation and that type of corrections that we're asking you to accept. Those were, none of them were, had changed content at all. The fifth item is we finished the strategic plan, and that basically talks about how to update it, how to use the plan, and then also lists all of the goals and strategies in all of those chapters in one place. So you can really use that to track what they are, and it's kind of a cheat sheet of what the recommendations in the plan are. We did send that out to you last week, and then we also posted it and had that so that people could look at it. And then there is one content change that we would like to do, and that is in the employment development type that we add, and I think it said this, but to me it wasn't clear enough, that we add the words "and potential adjacency issues" to the sentence, that due to the special transportation requirements and potential adjacency issues, attention to design, screening, and open space buffering is necessary when employment areas are adjacent to residential uses. So it's just clarifying that idea, that it doesn't really change that. So those are the items that we are recommending change for. Then the table 3, 4, and 5, we are not recommending any changes, but if y'all desire to talk about any of those, we're prepared to do that with you. The new comments we've received after we posted the log, the first one was the comment on map 6 that we discussed above, that he clarified his request, which we really appreciated. The second one was that there would be more low-income housing and businesses, large community center for being able to shelter in place during hurricanes, and then job training. And we think that you could include a strategy to explore providing future community centers and shelters that are multi-purpose, which is the recreation, the whole theme of that recreation and open space chapter is really figuring out multi-purpose facilities to look at that in the future. And just, you're raising the idea, you're not saying it has to be done in the next month, but just something to think about in the future as the parish develops. And then job training is already included in the plan, so no change there. And then the last comment that came in was talking about using minimum, really looking at clustering development, so that say you have 100 acres, you can cluster them on the higher ground and then keep the rest of the land open for the future. And that is something that is done across the country to really address runoff and water management, floodplain management techniques. That is addressed in the plan now, but we think just to be more specific on that, things to look at when you rewrite your subdivision and zoning ordinance, we wanted to specifically say incorporate zoning standards to allow clustering units on tracts that maintain open space on the remaining land area. And that's not saying, and again, this doesn't make that happen. It would go through the ordinance process and be fine-tuned at that point. So just a summary of our recommendations at this point prior to the public hearing is that on table 1, map change 9 is provided on the map, that the 6 changes in table 2 are made, and that on the new comment table, changes in item 2 and 3 is recommended on that table are made as well. And with that, I think this is stuck, but I think that that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Janet. Mr. Fournier, before we get to the public comments, Mr. Furman is not here tonight, but I did leave a message that he would like read into the record. Could you please read that for us?
I'll be happy to. Thank you. And this is from Commissioner Ken Furman. As you are aware, I'm not able to attend this meeting as we'll be out of the country through June 17th on a trip which was booked last June. I deeply regret not being able to attend, as the topic to be discussed at this special meeting is crucial in preparing Ascension Parish for the growth in population expected over the years to come. It is of my opinion that the master land use plan being considered is well thought out and was developed in part by the residents of Ascension Parish, who gave their input through the various workshops offered and also took in consideration the 1998 master plan and its later revisions. I just want to make you aware that my position regarding this plan, that I'm in favor of approving the Ascension Parish Master Plan as presented and would vote in favor of approving it had I been able to attend this meeting. Sincerely, Ken Furman, Planning and Zoning Commissioner.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and open this up to public comments. I would ask that you remember that there is a 3-minute time period. We have a big crowd tonight. If we didn't limit it, we'd be here all night. And please keep order as people are talking, especially with those who you do not agree with. Ms. Stacy, who's the first person to speak?
Christina Guidry.
Thank you for taking my comments. When I'm faced with a decision that I need to make, I look at my values and my principles. Well, Ascension Parish zoning also has principles that guide them in their decisions. And I like the principles, and I want to read them to you as a reminder tonight. There's 12 of them, but I'm just going to read the first 3. Number 1 is to protect public safety and property. Number 2 is to manage the growth. 3 is to preserve the rural character of the parish. So I want to talk about those, each one. Number 1 is to protect the safety of Ascension Parish. I think this is a good guiding principle. And with that, I understand you guys recognize the need for our safety, which would be especially on our roads. And so it sounds like you guys are addressing a master transportation plan, and that is appreciated. What I would ask is that when we're looking at new subdivisions, it sounds like you guys are, I'm reflecting, you are requiring new subdivisions to have some improvements, and I think that that's a really good step. I would ask that maybe that it goes a little further. I've seen in places where entire highways have had to be put in before a subdivision is allowed to come in, and so look at ways maybe to make more improvements, because I really am concerned with the number of people we're adding without improvements to our infrastructure. So, if we can maybe stop the amount of new subdivisions coming in before we have that infrastructure in place. Okay, so number 3 is preserving the rural character. CPEX has addressed, I had made concerns about Highway 44. There are some estate lots that we back up to. We really love that. So what I'm understanding is they feel like it was addressed, saying it's residential. Yes, it allows for that, but there's nothing saying that it doesn't allow it to then go to a smaller area. So there's nothing preventing those having higher density. So I'm asking maybe, change that one to estate to preserve that rural character. So I just want to say I love living here in Louisiana, just with the exception of the roads. They're frightening to me, especially Highway 30, Highway 44. The other thing is on the transportation plan, it shows that Highway 22 is going to be extended to a 4-lane highway before Highway 44, but your own traffic studies show that Highway 44 is busier.
Thank you, ma'am.
Maybe if you guys can look at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lynn Whitmere.
Hello, my name is Lynn Whitmer. I live in Sanamo. I'm against any new major construction.
Ma'am, please make sure to speak into the microphone because
Okay.
people are having difficulty hearing.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm against any new major construction in Ascension Parish. Parish officials need to say no until we get better infrastructure roads, drainage. I lost my home in the August 2016 flood, and I'm convinced it will happen again because y'all won't say no to any more major construction. Places where water used to drain, and I've lived in Louisiana 63 years, where water used to drain cannot drain due to numerous brick homes, what's called subdivisions. I want roads and drainage improved before approving any major construction. Just getting here tonight from Santa Monica was a nightmare with all the traffic that I had to come to here. And y'all want to build more construction? Want to do more? Stop all subdivisions until y'all build better roads and better infrastructure.
Barry Blanchard.
Barry Blanchard.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Barry Blaylock, and my wife, Billy, and I live in the corner of Loosemore and Donaldson. We've been there 16 years. We left New Orleans 16 years ago and came here to live out in the country where it's quiet and peaceful, and where we didn't have a crowd of people and small lots. We grew up on 50 by 100-foot lots. Now we have roughly 3 acres. What we don't want to see y'all do is move people back in again. We have no infrastructure. There was a movie out not long ago that said, if you build it, they'll come. Ascension Parish seems to think it's the other way around. If you get here, we'll hurry up and build it, or we might build it. When they built Conway and the other one across the street, whatever the name of it is, Oak Lakes or something like that, they told us, oh, they're going to fix 44 and they're going to put roundabouts and they're going to do this. There's nothing there. It's exactly the way it was before. I mean, there are continuous people. It took me 30 minutes to get here just to go around the corner. And now what we're all doing is going right and going down to the red light, whatever the red light is down there, and making a U-turn and coming back, because that's the only way you can get here. If Baton Rouge happens to put a southern loop in, they're talking about going through Donaldsonville and coming across the Sunshine Bridge. Guess where all those people are going to come going back to Baton Rouge? They're going to come right up 44, and there'll be 100 times more people on 44 going that way. What we'd like y'all to do is listen to the people. Don't listen to the planning committee. The planning committee is planning on people that are coming. We're already here. We would like you to support us, not the people that might get here. Thank you.
Lou Gobble.
Unfortunately, I have to say that when this master plan process began, there were never any real choices for the people. The process was flawed from the very start. Consultants were told the public that 50 to 60,000 people were coming to the parish in the next 20 years. We just need to find a place to fit them. Where? We were told, just place these chips on the Ascension map and we'll tally up the results. This growth is being forced on us. There was no discussion of updating our current master plan that was the vision of the people in 1998, 21 years ago. Someone, we don't know who, made this decision, but it wasn't the people attending these dog and pony shows. If the project starts out with inaccurate assumptions, you come up with inaccurate conclusions. This is exactly what happened with this master plan proposal. Our money was spent in a way that destroys the future of our community, and you are asking us to approve this travesty. The tax dollars received from new residents are never enough to provide the services that people require. Double or triple the money is necessary. Infrastructure will continue to suffer. We cannot approve, and neither should you.
Thank you.
Catherine Gopple.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. 8 years ago, CPEX came to Ascension peddling a similar proposal that was soundly rejected by the citizens. Then we paid $350,000. This time we paid $450,000 for this CPEX charade. The federal government is not allowed to direct local governments in land use, so organizations like CPEX are used to circumvent the law. This process has never been about what the people wanted. This plan does not capture the vision of Ascension citizens or reflect our core values. We have 12 guiding principles that are reduced to 4 in this proposal. Gone is the number 1 guiding principle to protect the public safety and property. Gone is number 3, to preserve rural character. That was one of the highest priorities in the past as well as today. Urban planners hired by unelected bureaucrats on this commission, and parish council members want to urbanize Ascension. Packing in another 50 to 60,000 people with our current infrastructure is a recipe for more misery. The CPEX vision map contradicts what the people expressed and what is written in the plan. This vision map will be used to change our existing codes and development standards if the parish council drinks the Kool-Aid. This commission is a recommending body. They cannot legislate. Mixed-use compact development is encouraged. Doubling and tripling densities and up to 5 stories are suggested. But specifics have purposely been left out. Why are they hiding from the public what they have in store for us? 4 meetings out of 10 were open to the public. 6 stakeholder meetings behind closed doors discussed this proposed plan with 30 to 31 individuals, including president and former officials, Chamber of Commerce members. The deck was stacked. 60% of the time, the people of the parish were shut out. The public was not allowed to attend or to know what was being said. No meeting minutes were recorded. What a deception. The process is anything but fair and transparent. Alternative forms of transportation, such as walking and bicycling, are mentioned, as well as public transit and high-speed rail. The plan claims to be assisting elderly and disabled with sidewalks and bicycle paths. The elderly and disabled don't ride bicycles. Industrial development is encouraged. It is placed in Prairieville, near high-density residential areas. Never mind that we have the 3rd largest industrial complex in the world along the Mississippi right here in Ascension. The plan says we should diversify our economy and have buffers between residential and industrial zones. Yet they combined business park and industrial in this plan. This is wrong. It's a grave danger to the health and safety of the people. CPEX came with their vision. This proposal is not our vision of the people. The process was skewed and the input manipulated. Citizens welcomed others who moved to Ascension to enjoy our quality of life. Do not destroy what we have in this urban vision, or with this urban vision. Adequate infrastructure first, and we can manage future growth. Vote no, stand with the people. I'd like to place these comments in the public record. Thank you.
Okay.
Brenda Whitney.
Good evening, and thank you for listening to us this evening. I would appreciate, though, if you all could stay in the room and listen to what we have to say instead of exiting the room. It's very disrespectful to the people of this parish. With that said, when I got here this evening and they asked me if I wanted to comment, I wasn't sure because I didn't really know what I was coming to listen to. Unfortunately, because of work schedules, I wasn't able to make all these other meetings and to know what was going on. But I do know one thing. We've outgrown what we already have, and we can't afford any more growth. It's not possible. How many of you have to drive to Baton Rouge every day between 7 and 8 in the morning? That's a joke. It takes me longer to get from where I live on Cannon Road to I-10 at 621 than it does for me to get from 621 and 73 to my office on Goodwood Boulevard. That's ridiculous. It shouldn't take that long. But we're not doing anything to help the roads. We just keep adding more subdivisions. As Ms. Whitmer said earlier, just say no. We tell our kids to say no to drugs. Why can't you say no to subdivisions? They need to stop until we catch up. It's not happening. Recently, I was told that Dutchtown High School had to limit tickets to their graduation this year to 7 per student. God forbid that student has a mixed family with divorced parents, because then all his grandparents couldn't come to his graduation. And I'm told next year it's going to be worse. Why? Because we keep adding more developments, adding more students. We don't have the place for more students. We don't have the place for more cars. We don't have the room for more subdivisions. Please say no.
Eli Brooks.
How y'all doing tonight? I'm Eli Brooks. I'm from Dutchtown. I live off of 74. I get up in the morning. If I want to take a left, I got to take a right. Coming here in the afternoon to take a right, I have to wait 20 to 30 minutes. Growth is way over. We need to hold back on growth. And another thing, y'all up here to represent us, but you don't represent us. You represent yourselves. Mr. Pryor, you said you came here with an open mind. Then you said my mind's already made up, so it's not open. So what I'm going to get to, y'all have these subdivisions built. I've been here for 50-something years. Every time, 29 years ago, I came here, and first thing I heard, no impact. If you have 200 homes, you got 400 cars. There ain't going to be no impact in that subdivision, but there's going to be damn sure impact on that road. You got another big subdivision being built right now, Conway. How many homes are in there? 500? That's 1,000 more cars. This man said here they don't have no growth, no people moving into Ascension Parish. They're wrong. You got a lot of people leaving out Baton Rouge to come to Ascension Parish. Sooner or later, you're going to go to high density. Go down over by the Waffle House there and go on Veteran Road there. Yeah. Look at the high density you have there. I'll bet you're going to have over 1,000 cars just there, because you're going to have 2 people living there. Then if they have kids, you're going to have another car. So you're going to wind up with about 3,000 cars. What you need to do, what this planning commission needs to do, when you have a subdivision built, quit building these retainment ponds. That's useless, because they're filled up 90% of the time. They don't retain nothing. They don't retain no runoff. That's idiotic. That's all I got to say.
Clint Quintmall.
Good evening. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the transparency of the whole process. It's obvious how citizens feel about the plan, so there's no need to go into that. At first, when we went to the general concepts, were fine, and then we went to the meetings, and I attended a lot of them, the public ones, not the ones behind closed doors. But I began to notice just how vague the concepts were, and then I noticed that there wasn't any group discussion or questions on these particular items. And then I began to question, why is this not on Channel 21? Why is it that residents who can't attend these meetings have the opportunity to see what's going on? And it replays in my mind very vividly the last time we had a master plan and how engaged the public was. And these group conversations, so that when one person asked a question, the whole entire audience could hear the answer. And that process seemed not to exist until a citizen forced a group exchange. They forced a discussion and that was at the last master plan public meeting. Now, I just want you to think about that. I want you to think about when citizens have to force things to be transparent. And to be honest, I don't blame CPEX. I blame Ascension Parish government, because they should have stepped up and had clear, defined rules on how this was going to be transparent, how the public comments would be added into the plan, because they're clearly not. And it doesn't take a genius to figure out how many greens and how many reds we got here. Okay? These people are against this plan because simply their comments are not addressed. Now, if we're going to follow this plan like we follow the current plan, I don't have a problem, because we don't follow the current plan. So you're not going to have any issue from me. But if we're going to write ordinances and we're going to change zonings and we're going to create densities, then I do have a problem, because the public will is not expressed in this plan. And until it is, I'm going to fight tooth and nail to stop it. Thank you.
Earl Moran.
Good evening. I wasn't going to come, but I was asked to come. Man, I'm 62 years old. I still fool with horses. And I said to myself, I'm going to build me a barn. I said, you got to be out your mind. Let me back up, because my granddaughter graduated from Santa Monica. I left my house 5 minutes after 5 to go pick my daughter up that lives on Bayou Narcisse toward Old Bourgeois Brother. I get over there to pick my daughter up and my grandson. Me and my wife and them went to go to graduation. You know what time I got at graduation? 7:20. 7:20. I sat in traffic from the Old Bourgeois Brothers on Bayou Narcisse to get from right there to the stadium. Took me that long. I missed my granddaughter walking up on stage. Okay? I leave my house. I don't go to work till 7 o'clock in the morning. I work for Belco Industrial Services. I'm a manager there. I leave my house at 5:15 every morning. And there ain't a morning go by. If you don't believe me, come ride along. I'll pick you up and you can come ride with me. I got to sit off of Bijune Road to get on Roddy Road. I got to sit 15 minutes before I can pull out. When you come home in the evening, forget it. They ain't gonna let you come in, because by the time they get from that four-way stop of Church Point Road and coming up, they ain't gonna let you in. Why? Because they want to get home. The traffic. It took me a half hour to get from Bijune Road to right here this evening. Man, I'm telling you, everywhere I look, I see clearing land where they had cows at. Man, cows are going to be the past over here in Ascension Parish. Y'all trying to, it seems to me like y'all trying to move the people that's been rooted here and our ancestors that been here. Y'all trying to bring the other people in here and move us out, because Earl Moran, he's fixing to move out of Ascension Parish. I'm telling you, I got a horse trailer. I just asked Max. I just bought me another brand new horse trailer with living quarters, and it's 36 feet long, and I got a 2012 dually. And when I go to pull out on Roddy Road, that's suicide, because they ain't gonna let you out. There ain't no way they're going to let you out. So I'm blocked in. I can't go nowhere. And I mean, everywhere you look, y'all shoving woods down where there was cow pastures is now subdivision. Where's all the water going? Where's all the sewer going? Who's going to start drinking the sewer next? Oh, they tell you, we're going to put these modads, you can drink the glass of water out of it. Come drink it. I'll let you have the first glass.
Teresa Robert.
Connie Contrary to CPEX's claim numerous times throughout the proposed 200-plus page master plan, the proposed plan does not capture the vision of Ascension citizens and reflect citizens' core values. Hundreds of residents participated in the 4 public meetings over the past year. Not once did I hear citizens ask CPEX to increase densities, doubling and tripling them. However, citizens were not allowed to attend private meetings of the Ascension Parish Master Land Use Plan Stakeholder Committee of 30 appointed government and business people. After finding out this committee existed, Ms. Gulpel asked Parish Director Mr. Jerome Fournier if these meetings were open to the public, and he said no. She was also told there were no minutes of these meetings. Did members of this committee ask to raise the residential densities and request urbanization of Ascension Parish to fit the 50 to 60,000 more people? Is it a conflict of interest that Parish Planning Commissioners Julio Dumas and Matt Pryor were 2 of those on this special committee and will be voting on their plan tonight? Residents who attended the CPAC's public meetings consistently stated the need for infrastructure first before additional development. They expressed concerns about the lack of adequate infrastructure throughout our parish, where citizens are gridlocked in daily traffic, compromised public safety, impaired drainage, parish-wide substandard roads, no parish-wide sewer, and overcrowded schools. Interestingly, while the proposed master plan confirms these are real problems in our parish, the land use vision map does the opposite, increasing residential densities where there is not adequate infrastructure for what already exists today. Currently, Ascension Parish zoning is 1 home per acre in conservation, 2 in rural, and 3 in medium-intensity residential. Apartments were allowed in mixed use. Proposed new densities per acre are more than tripling in some categories. Earlier in the process, ranging from 4.5 to 10 homes per acre. The final proposed master plan withholds pertinent information for densities now allowed under residential subdivision and neighborhood hub, the largest areas of Ascension Parish to be changed with higher densities per acre. This fact has been hidden from citizens. The process utilized throughout this process has been a farce, pretending to create a respectable appearance of transparency. Hundreds of residents participated in all of these public hearings, vocalizing the desire to protect our valuable quality of life. Citizens strongly and consistently rejected being urbanized. This appointed commission and CPACs have persistently crammed this high-density proposal down our throat. Citizens refuse to swallow it. We pray that our elected officials on the parish council will stand up for citizens in the end as you bring these to codes and enact this, protecting our quality of life, and reject your proposed plan. It is not the people's plan. They will vote. I'd like to put this in the record.
Denise Drago.
Even though, my name is Denise Drago, and even though I'm not well tonight, it was important to me to come here for my kids, my grandkids, my friends, family, and Ascension Parish residents to say this whole process has been a sham. We've been guided through what y'all wanted. If you turn around and look, this is we the people. Look at this room. Y'all are not hearing what we say. There's not one green form up there. Well, I see one, but not many. We don't want this. I live on Highway 73, and you don't go out in the morning before 8:30 between school traffic, and this is before they moved the Dutchtown Elementary closer to me. It's going to be worse. We can't drive on our roads now. They're substandard. And let me give y'all a memo in case y'all didn't get it 2 years ago from the state. They have no money for roads. They're going to continue on doing 42, but they took some of the roads that they were supposed to do off because they said, we have no money. We will not be doing any new roads. And y'all say, oh, they state roads. And then the new gym, they pull money from the general fund that we could have used for parish roads to go to the new gym. And unlike what he said, my son moved to League City, Texas. And if you've ever been there, they had the infrastructure first. It's 4-laned everywhere. You can get around. There's more people than here. and it's wonderful. He loves out of state. They don't want to stay here because you're in a traffic jam. If the interstate breaks down, it takes you an hour to get from the interstate to St. John's Church, 1 hour in the afternoon or morning, depending when it breaks down. Same thing, if airline, you can't do it. People are tired of what should be a 10-minute ride taking an hour. Say no, N-O, simple word. And most of y'all are attorneys and big shots and stuff. Y'all may not have to be at work for 8 o'clock in the morning, but the rest of us here, most of us do. And it's hard. And it's suicide getting out on some of these roads. Listen, please listen to what we say. We do not want this. We do not want the density. And you tell people, no, we don't have it. This is what's available. And guess what? The market's going to go up because if you have housing and they're coming here from Laplace, from New Orleans, from Baton Rouge, from out of state. Please listen to the people. You're supposed to represent us. Look at all the people. They won't know, and y'all not listening.
Brenda Robert.
Hi, I'm Brenda Robert. I've lived here for 48 years. I live in the city, but I have property in the parish. And I have 4 kids and 15 grandkids. I'm here for them as well as myself. I'd like to thank you all for doing the service you do. We don't agree with your determinations sometimes, but we do thank you for doing your service. And I thank all my neighbors who are here and apologize for my not having been at earlier meetings. One of the things that really bothered me is that I haven't seen a map that actually shows all the roads in this parish. It's like you look at this vague drawing and you can't tell where what is. I respectfully request that no vote go on this evening unless a map is put at the library that is complete. Something I can explain to the others that ask me about it, how to see how it impacts them. As for the classifications, I read that rural residential open also has retail and commercial use in the same paragraph. Estate subdivide definition has commercial allowed. Why are we even classifying it if we're going to let it be all mixed residential and commercial? Page 13 continues defining residential neighborhoods as mixed lot sizes and ends with supporting commercial use. That's going to put an awful lot of discretion in the hands of future planning commissioners and the councils. I ask you to reconsider the definitions in this plan. Next, neighborhood hub is described as, quote, primarily pedestrian-oriented areas, and in the same paragraph says up to 5-story buildings. That's an awful lot of pedestrians. I'm also confused. Why would we consider a plan that has 5 neighborhood hubs in commercial industrial areas?
Thank you, ma'am.
Alvin Burke.
Alvin Burke.
Brad Burke. I've been living in Gonzales for 58 years. I work at Nova Chemicals. I work shift work, so it's easy for me to get to work because I got to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't have to, but I do because of traffic. Highway 30 is a nightmare. Those concrete stoppers that they put in the middle of 30 from Interstate to 73 is a joke. California has what they call two-way traffic. In the morning, they'll make one traffic contraflow. They'll make traffic go one way in the morning, and then they'll go the opposite way in the afternoon, or whatever. I don't know why they put those stoppers there. I've even hit them a couple of times because you can't see them. Yeah, it's a shame. It's stressful. Sometimes I take off vacation because I don't feel like driving. It's a shame. It really is. I have to structure my life because of traffic. A buddy of mine I work with, he was in Dawsonville the other day. He hits a pothole and lands in the ditch. $2,700 worth of front end damage on his truck because of the roads. We need wider roads, not more people. You have to widen the road. You can only fit so much blood in a vein. That's why you go through heart surgery, because you can't work. It's not working. We need drainage. We can't even go through the roads without getting flooded. I mean, it's a nightmare. I have property on Highway 30 off of 44. South of Gonzales floods, and it makes about, I don't know, 3-4 acres of water. It's a pond. I mean, the land doesn't do you any good. You know, we could put a subdivision there. I don't see anybody running to buy it. I think Chris Robert wanted to look at buying it and building digging a pond and raising the land up. For what? You can't get to it. You got 18 inches of water when 5 inches of rain. We get 5 inches of rain. More people is not going to solve the problems for East Baton Rouge. East Baton Rouge has their own problems. Ascension Parish is not the answer. I hear more people now, they're wanting to move out of Ascension Parish because they're tired of it. They're tired of fighting the traffic. I want to go and get a hamburger at McDonald's. Well, they got a train stop on Highway 30, and it's going all the way to Prepare Road. I got to go backtrack and go down Highway 30 and go to the McDonald's. I like going to the one on 61. You know, I mean, it shouldn't be that hard. It shouldn't take 20 minutes to get to McDonald's when you live 3 miles away. Yeah, it's gotten to be ridiculous. More and more people now are telling me they're ready to move out of this place. Y'all want to move people in, they're going to be just many people moving out. You put 50,000 in, I bet 20,000 is going to move out. They're going to have to.
Thank you, Mr. Burke.
Eddie Denham.
How y'all doing? My name's Eddie Denham, and I own VTS Garbage Service. And y'all wanting to change the way I do my business for seniors and disabled and handicapped people. I want you to tell those people that they don't have a choice in who they choose for their garbage provider. You want to turn it over to one of the big guys. Well, guess what? Look how it's working in Baton Rouge. Republic ain't working out too good for them people. $35 million, and they still can't get the people's garbage picked up. It ain't working in Zachary. It ain't working in Baker. And guess what? Go to Livingston. Call anybody in Livingston and ask them how their garbage provider's working out with waste management. It ain't working either. You want to take the business away from me and give it to one of the big guys. But you know what? That's not the answer. The people should have a right to choose who they want to pick their garbage up, not you. It's a shame that I have to come up here and represent the 2,000 plus customers that I have, that to tell them, oh, you can't use me no more. I've been doing this for 2 years, sir. I've not missed one person's garbage pickup day. Can Republic say that? Can Waste Pro say that? No. You got Dale's garbage provider. He's been doing this for 30 plus years. He's got an excellent reputation. If you want to find out about what my business is and what we provide to the parish of Ascension and the people in Ascension, go on Facebook, go on the Ascension Business Report, and just type in my name, Eddie Denham, and find out what people are saying about my garbage service. I respect what y'all do, but you're not respecting what we do. By offering something and putting it on the table to somebody else and not giving the public the right to choose, you're taking that away from these people. Furthermore, about the subdivisions, I'm all for the subdivisions. You put in many subdivisions as you want, because that's great for my business. But let me explain something to you. I have to leave at 2:30 in the morning to pick people's garbage up in Ascension Parish. Why? Because the traffic is so bad. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. You can't get to Dutchtown, so I have to rearrange my whole business plan to get to Dutchtown. Go on Highway 42. That's a disaster. That's a disaster. If I got garbage service customers over there, I have to go either at 3 o'clock in the morning or at 8 o'clock at night. Now, I don't know about you. I don't like being on the road at 8 o'clock at night picking people's garbage up. The valet service that we offer, we walk up to your front door and get your garbage for you. Can Republic offer that service to these people? No. And I'm going to tell you, the amount of money that they have available to them, and they can't even pick the people's garbage up. What you going to do? Thank you.
Before we call the next one up, and I've refrained from commenting, but Mr. Denham, I don't believe that anything in this master plan has anything to do with garbage pickup or limiting your business.
There actually is.
You want to turn it over to parish-wide garbage service. It's in there. And that's what that's about. You take that away from the voice of the people. Listen to what these people are saying. These people got family at home.
Yeah.
They didn't come up here just to come over here to visit with y'all, which is great. But let me tell you, I'd rather be doing something with my kids at home than coming up here to voice my opinion about the service. Thank you.
Well, I would just say that I'm against parish-wide garbage.
Take it out of the plan. Take it out. Read the
Next one, Miss Stacy. We're going to remain at order, please. Miss Stacy is the next person.
Briss Duplessis.
Mr. Briss.
How y'all doing? Good afternoon.
Yeah, I know it's in there.
I understand. Yes, thank you. But hold on. Mr. Duplessis, it's his turn to speak. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, sir, I didn't mean to bother you. Take your time.
Okay. I'm from the Dyer area. I wish I could put a map up where everybody could see it, but
Just place it on top of it.
Take that out.
I'm right here. And in 1998, we didn't want no zoning then, but they forced it on us, so we zoned conservation. Well, I went to these meetings and I told people what we wanted in our area. Well, fortunately, it was green when I left meetings and all, and now it's high residential. So how did it change and why? Is what I want to know. Somebody in Prairieville's telling me what to do, what they can do around where I live. So this plan ain't too great. And you can't say I didn't go to meetings. The only one I couldn't go to was the last one when they showed all the maps, because someone died, unfortunately. But I just don't understand how y'all can vote for this when this ain't what I saw on the map every time I went. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you, Mr. Bliss.
Debbie Kidder.
I want to know who did the infrastructure study on 44. They are deaf, dumb, and blind. I live on 44, and it is horrible. Don't think you're going to come out of Pelican Crossing. No, I don't live in Pelican Crossing. I live on the street, but I have to go out through Pelican Crossing. Don't think you're going to Ralph's at any time of the day because you can't turn left. I sat in 15 minutes of traffic right there on 44 after getting off of that interstate. I was about the 30th car in line. I live 1.5 miles up the road, and it took me 15 minutes. So who does these studies? Do y'all do the studies? Do we have somebody that's actually qualified and gives a damn? I don't think so. And one of y'all were saying about people coming from Baton Rouge to be here to live with us. Well, guess what happens? We become them. That's right. We don't want that. Now, are we going to get it even though we don't want it because of the bureaucracy? Yep. Their pockets are getting filled. Yeah, who's getting the money for it? They are. They're lobbyists. Well, let me ask you this. Are y'all elected? No. Well, who the hell put y'all in? Who? Oh, as far as the council, I cannot wait until next year to get all of them out except for Satterley. They are filling their own pockets, and I'm sick of it. And I realize I'm looking at just you. But you're the cutest. But at any rate.
Thank you. I don't get that compliment much, so I'll take it.
Okay, but I mean, so what do we have to do to keep y'all from wrecking us? What do we have to do? I mean, who can we go to keep this from happening to us? I know Trump. Okay, what about who? Who do we go to? You can't answer that? You don't know who your boss is? Oh, that's good.
We're going to vote on, to answer your question, we're going to vote up and down on this plan tonight.
Oh, great. I think you know how I'm going to vote.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes. I'm not sure how to say this name. Is Donna Robert or Donalo Robert? I think.
Donna Robert? Don Robert. Donald Robert.
Good evening. Thank y'all for letting me speak. Almost 3 decades ago, Parish decided that the right thing to do was form a different kind of government. Those people that have been elected in almost the 3 decades leave a hell of a legacy. You can't get where you're going. The traffic is atrocious, worse than terrible. The flooding is unbelievable, and it's only getting worse. You think people come here to Ascension Parish to get to our schools because they're great. They come here because the schools all around us are terrible. I've got a wife that's a retired teacher. I've got a daughter that's a teacher. Don't fool yourself. Now, if y'all gonna want to be part of the legacy for the last 30 years, now go ahead. I know it's hard for y'all to do this. Y'all volunteer your own time. I also know that people that sold land 5 years ago and made a lot of money, their neighbor that's getting older and has 40 acres and maybe he can leave something for his family, I understand him wanting to do that. So you can't cut out everything. But there's a lot of things you can do. I've been saying this for 50 years, and all my good friends that's in the dirt business hate me for it. Every house from Baton Rouge to the mouth of the river should have been pier and beam. Every house. Should have had an impact tax 30 years ago, a 1% impact tax on every house, unless you had property that you owned and you want to give it to your family to build, should have had that. But no, the builders voted against that, so it never was passed. And this is the kind of shape we're in. You have a chance to do what's right. You have a chance to do something for Ascension Parish that nobody else has. You got to think of the landowners, but when you invite people in, they got to pay the price. They come here, they buy a lot with on each side, and they try to tell everybody what they do. They want bike paths, they want recreation, they want their baseballs to go in the sewage dish so their son can play. A lot more things you can do than just build subdivisions. You have to work on infrastructure. And I don't know why you have to pay somebody $400,000 to do it. It's something that you can do, someone in the parish can do. See the needs, do it. Let these people sell this property. But let them sell it to the people that's coming in, and they're going to pay to be in here. Thank you.
Joe Robert.
Good evening. How y'all doing? Whenever y'all are ready. I'm going to wait till they're looking at me.
Yeah, no, go ahead. We're ready.
You ready? Okay.
Yeah, I'll even add on to 10 seconds.
Appreciate you. All right, I'm here. I was here through the Gonzales CPEX thing and kind of went through the same program. I'm here for this one. The Gonzales one was a little better because they kind of tailored to the needs and they did implement some of the stuff people wanted. But this one is not. This one is terrible. I've got some notes right here on it. Just there's so much here tonight that you've already heard. I'm going to try to kind of stay away from some of it. Okay. So, despite this public outcry against development, CPEX turned a blind eye to this because I went through all of these meetings. I was at all of these. It was infrastructure first, let's do this. I don't see any of that reflected in any of this stuff here. The way they did this and the way they got by with doing this with the results, I would assume is putting children and kids into the mix. Now, the reason that doesn't work for me is because you don't put data gathered from high school children into a project that's going to determine our future. Like voters decide that type of stuff. Voters get to decide that. What's that? Yeah, they don't pay taxes. More importantly, they don't vote. So I'm sorry. I have a kid. He's right here. I have a daughter. But no, he doesn't get to choose how my parish is built. This is very clear that this is not what the people want. I'm sure I'll hear some excuses about, well, the master plan doesn't do this, and it's just a guide. Well, that's not okay. We don't want just a guide. But I know y'all will do the right thing because it's obvious what the people want. And if not, I will pledge personally that I'm going to take it on my shoulders to propose legislation to remove the Planning Commission from having a final decision on anything. Instead, you will make a recommendation to the council, and we will either approve or deny. So, gentlemen, please make the right decision tonight, because if you represent the people, hey, maybe we can talk. If you don't, you make your own fate. Good night.
Before we call the next one up, we're going to take a 5-minute recess. There's a lot of old guys on this commission that need to use the bathroom. I'm sure many of you do, too, that are not as old as some of these guys. So we'll take 5 minutes and for a brief recess and be back. We'll be in recess for 5 minutes. They're the ones that don't want to speak. Okay, we'll be back in order to resume on this meeting. I'd ask everybody, please take your seats. Miss Stacy, who's the next person signed up to speak, please?
Verdell Banner. Verdell Banner. Bannon.
Verdell Banner, I know he's here because I saw him in the audience. He might be out in the hallway. Put Verdell in the back. If he comes back in, we'll move him up to the front. But I know we'll wait. We're going to move on for the people who are in here, but we'll get Mr. Verdell when he comes.
Angela Denham.
Angela Dunham.
Barker.
Derman.
Yeah, I wasn't going to kill his name.
Okay, make sure we get back to Angela Denham and Verdell Banner.
Sorry, I'm glad I didn't stay outside too long. Chairman Pryor, commissioners, thank y'all for the opportunity to speak tonight. It sounds like I'm going to be a man on an island today, but I'm here asking for your favorable consideration of this plan. I'd also like to recognize Janet and Lauren with CPEX. They have been very helpful. They've made it a priority to involve the chamber in the development of this plan, from presenting at our membership luncheons to hosting small workshops with our board of directors and our government and community development committees. CPEX has made it a priority to include the voice of the business community in this plan, and for that we are grateful. My greatest takeaway from having directly participated in the development of this plan is that residents want to know that parish infrastructure can and will match future parish growth. The chamber too believes.
Please let him speak. I know you may not agree, but everybody has stood silent while everybody else has spoken.
The chamber too believes this to be very important, as traffic congestion is a serious threat to economic growth. However, it is unrealistic to think that we can turn away development until these services are in place. To do so would directly contradict our mission as the Ascension Chamber, which is to facilitate and foster economic growth for our members. Restricting development in the parish to a point that limits economic opportunity is not smart growth, it's anti-growth. The reality is our parish is going to continue to grow at a fast rate if our public schools continue to perform at exceptional levels and our local economy continues to thrive. But this master land use plan will be a tool that allows us to control what that growth looks like and where it goes. I must also mention that the plan will be implemented in coordination with the parish's master transportation plan, ensuring future transportation projects can be strategically planned in place for the areas where population growth and development will be the greatest. This type of collaborative planning is what smart growth truly embodies. Again, thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and I ask that you vote to approve this plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lilia White.
Hi, my name is Lil White. I live on Rena Malonzo Road. It's about the only place that Ascension Parish hasn't been touched. It's the only little piece of heaven left that we can raise cattle on, believe it or not. We bought a place, 25 acres, that has 6 lots on it. We bought this with intent to sell for 7 home sites. And we have 4 houses down Rena Malonzo. We have a wonderful neighbor, which is a business, Cooper T. Smith. They're wonderful. They've been there since my mom and dad moved down there 35 years ago. They've been excellent neighbors. We live right there on the corner. It's a 90-degree angle where 75 cuts Rena Malonzo. So it's a perfect haven there. It's not a lot of traffic. Kids can actually go out there and play. There's the levee in front of us. And now somebody has the nerve to change it into industrial. Excuse me? Industrial? Who changed this? Who notified us of industrial? We don't want this change. This is riverfront property. This is all river. I mean, this right now, I can't even cut my mom's backyard because it's all inundated with water. So how are you going to put industrial? We have a heaven back there. We have 4 homes back there. A wonderful little community. And now you're telling me you're going to make it industrial? Who suggested this? I'm like, Brett, who changed it? Who gives you the right to change our plans that we bought this property to make it residential, which we bought it for, residential? Do I get grandfathered in? Do I get grandfathered for residential? Do I?
It actually doesn't change you.
So it stays residential? But that other little slice, that little bitty
stays
slice, okay, so the levy is industrial?
It's just a recommendation heat map, but it's not forcing any change.
It's not, it doesn't change to use your rights at all. It doesn't change your rights at all. That's
But
just,
what about that little slice by me? What happens to it?
It's the plan is just a plan. If it is up to the council to change zoning of any particular area as the council deems it needs to. They don't have to. They're not required to. There's no recommendation that it go to. It says that
But if you vote for it tonight, what happens to my property?
It'll stay exactly as it is.
What about my mom's property,
It'll
the
stay
40 acres?
if we vote for this plan tonight, everything that is currently zoned will stay exactly as it is until or unless the parish council decides to rezone. If that even comes up, you will get notice of that. Before it ever comes up, a rezoning would have to come to us first for a recommendation or not recommendation to the parish council, and then the parish council would ultimately decide to rezone or not rezone.
And then what
This
happens
is
to me?
this is the plan. Well, if they decide to rezone, then it's rezoned. But they're not going to any pre-existing non-conforming use will stay exactly as it is.
you'd have to give permission as the owner, you'd have to give permission to whoever applied for that rezoning. I mean, it wouldn't happen without your blessing.
Yeah.
Okay, because we bought this
Unless you
property
sold-
for one
if you-
reason.
If you sold the property, that new owner could do with it, could apply for that. But until that happens, there's no change going to
Yeah,
happen.
they're not going to rezone you out of what you already have or change the use of your current land.
Okay, so cattle could stay as cattle?
Yes,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Wow.
Too bad I don't have this under recording now.
Oh, it's being recorded on YouTube,
It's
ma'am.
being recorded.
It'll be recorded and you can pull it back. It is the May 29th meeting on YouTube.
And it'll be in the public record.
And it's part of the public record.
We're gonna put it.
Yeah.
I'll be back if it changes.
I would be right with you. Next one, Miss Stacy, next. Mr. Dunham, is your wife, Mr. Dunham? Mr. Denham, your wife was signed up to speak, but she was out when we reconvened. Is she back in the chamber? You're going to pass?
Well, I wanted to ask one question. Okay, you say it's not in there about the garbage.
I said what we said is it's a strategy point to consider parish-wide garbage.
If you approve it tonight, what does that mean?
Ultimately, if the parish.
Recommendation, and I understand your recommendation. I take a recommendation is if you pass it, it's good to go.
No, that's not it at all.
That's not it. So it's just a strategy. It's just a strategy.
It's one thing. It's one thing that somebody recommended. They put in all the strategy points of saying, hey, maybe we can improve parish-wide garbage collection by having a parish run. In my opinion, and this is on the record, the way you improve parish-wide garbage collection and make it the most efficient is for open competition. And if you have the best business, Mr. Denham, then you deserve to be the best and let the market decide it. And I'm saying that clearly, and I'm even close to the microphone to put that on the record. I support your right to operate a business.
I appreciate your statement.
Yes, sir.
I'll change
Do you go to Pelican Point? Because I'm moving there this weekend. Miss Stacy, Miss Denham, are you, Miss Denham, hold on. Okay, Miss Denham, you are passing on your opportunity to speak? Okay, very good, thank you. And I did not see Verdell Banner. Mr. Verdell, have you come back in? I haven't seen him come back in, so we'll keep him on the list. Okay, Miss Stacy, who's next?
Kevin Guidry.
Mr. Guidry, Kevin Guidry. And Miss Stacy, how many do we have left who signed up to speak?
Two counting Verdell.
Okay, so Mr. Guidry and Mr. Vidal. You might be the last one if Mr. Banner is left. I don't know. So.
Okay, well, like I've heard others say tonight, there's a lot of things that I'd rather be doing than be here tonight. And I guess my wife drags me down here, but I know it's the right thing to do. President Lincoln once said, you know, it's apparent that we're going to fail here tonight, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue to support a just cause. I think what concerns me the most is that I know you say that this isn't setting any ordinances or really establishing any law, but it's resetting the norm. And each time we reset the norm, the boundaries shift, and they can shift left or right. And I think that's what I'm seeing here, whether it's consciously or unconsciously. I think what we need to decide, or you need to decide, is whether you're going to support the council or you're going to support the constituents that are here. It's obvious. It's painfully obvious. I mean, we don't represent the majority of the voters in Ascension Parish, but okay, I have no way of defining whether we support, but it's very apparent that there's a large majority here tonight that feels that this master plan is really a farce. It takes courage to vote with the constituents here tonight. It may go against what you thought you were going to do when you came in here tonight. It may go against what the person sitting next to you is going to do. But that's a decision that you need to make. And I ask you to consider that. Public service is difficult, and I admire you for doing it. I have no stomach for it myself. But you chose to do it. And this is the time, and this is the thing that you were sure of that you were going to do when you first decided to get into this. And I'm asking you to go back to those roots and represent the constituents that are here tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Mr. Banner is the last one. Miss Stacy?
No, I have one more.
One more, I'm sorry.
Debbie Babin.
Miss Babin? Debbie Babin?
Hello, I'm Debbie Babin. I live by Miss Lil down Rena Melanson, and we are now heavy industrial. Miss Lil was right. It is a little piece of heaven, and I can ride my bike on the levee, run, love living where I'm at. I moved there about 5 years ago. Initially, I was going to St. Francisville because Ascension Parish, traffic is terrible. Just the over-commercialization is heartbreaking to see how y'all are ruining a parish, ruining it. And for y'all to ruin my piece of heaven, oh my goodness. I hope y'all can sleep good tonight. That's all I'm saying. I would like to highly recommend not being heavy industrial. Thank you very much.
Is that it, except for Mr. Banner?
And Rome has.
He left? Okay, then we'll take him off. All right, before we get to that, before we get to Mr. Fournier, there are several people who have filled out cards where they say that they do not wish to speak, but they are present, and all of these are red cards, not in support. I'll just read the names for the record. I will not give the address because I don't think people want that as part of the public record, but Mr. Ray Hall, Miss Millie Blaylock, Miss Melanie Usry, Mr. Pierre Zarang and Miss Lisa Zarang, Mr. Colin Porter, Miss Rhonda Porta, Miss Jeannie Robert, Miss Bonnie Hinyup, Miss Randy Robert, Mr. Fran Tomplay, Miss Giselle Desherry, Miss Peggy Rose Martin, Miss Polly Broussard, Mr. Barry Marchand, Miss Wendy Alvarez, Mr. Darrell White, Miss Cynthia White, Mr. Terry Ussery, Miss Linda DeLon, Mr. Steve Juneau, Miss Cynthia Lazard, Mr. David Oob, Miss Lynn Burgett, Mr. Brandy Drago, Miss Beverly Cooper, Miss Hannah Landry, Miss Sheila Haydale Billingsley, Mr. Michael Odell, I can't read the first name, but it's a Sam Burgett. Can you read that first name? Mr. George Arnold Jr., Mr. Phil McLaurin, Lee and Alice Wagisback, Paul Milano, Tara Talion, Miss Sharon Sanders, Miss Donna Vess, who wrote that she would like to address infrastructure study effects, urbanization, and then there's tree and vegetation removal on flooding. Those were her comments. Mr. Gary Talion, Ms. Sherry McLaren, Mr. Walter Perkins, Mr. Ernest Opperman III, Mr. John Robert Sr. and Priscilla Robert, Aaron Stanchfield, Denise Emmons, Mr. Al Robert, Ms. Gloria Berry, Ms. Kathy Edmonston, Ms. Linda Gudo, Eugene and Jennifer Bordelon, John Paul White, Ms. Connie Edmonston, and Mr. Mac Edmondson, and those can all be in the record as people who are present and not in support of the new master plan. Before I open it up to the commission, Mr. Fournier, did you want to state something?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I have a letter addressed to me, asked by the constituent to read into the record, if you would allow me.
Yes.
Mr. Fournier, as a member of the Ascension Parish Master Plan Stakeholder Committee, I send this letter as my full endorsement of the proposed growth plan. The plan includes input from numerous public and stakeholder meetings, so the interests of the community are well represented. Additionally, ideas suggested therein have proven to provide positive growth patterns in other communities across the country. These are not new concepts. Based on the professional experience with the City of Gonzales, a well-developed comprehensive plan is the first, most critical step toward protecting existing citizens through new and redevelopment. Once this plan is adopted, the ordinances and regulations can be modeled around the plan concepts to ensure that our community receives the infrastructure and amenities that we all desire to have. Without good rules and regulations, development patterns will not change. Lastly, I write to you as an Ascension resident, wife, and mother. My family attended one of the first master plan workshops at Oak Grove Primary. I witnessed my 14-year-old excitedly draw neighborhood hubs and bike paths and sidewalks. As the only young person in the audience that evening, she may not have been the loudest person present, but she is the future of this parish and wants an urban community with recreational amenities. This plan is for her generation and their future. In closing, I am grateful for a variety of housing options and new development in our community, as I currently live in a multifamily complex in Prairieville, and I love it. Please adopt this plan, because the only way to change our community is to do things differently. If the master plan were adopted 10 years ago, then the developments of today would have been different. Don't let another decade pass up. Sincerely, Jackie Bowman, professional engineer.
Thank you. All right, at this time, I'm going to allow the commissioners to speak if they desire before we go to a vote on this. And if you desire, you can. If you would not desire, you don't have to. And we don't have a limitation, but I'd ask that you not take all night, and I'll start with Mr. Scheck-Snyder.
Oh, good Lord. I wasn't prepared to go first. It's not a perfect plan. I think that's easy to understand. We had 23 people who spoke, one person for, 23 against, and the consensus is that we need to have some form of infrastructure-driven growth. That's perfectly understandable. A lot of people talked about how we're forcing subdivisions and more subdivisions in this parish. The concerns have been addressed to the degree of we have passed stricter traffic ordinances, and that has now been proven to the constituents that we are enforcing these ordinances. It may have come a little too late, perhaps, but they are on the books now. We just passed a new drainage ordinance. Whether or not it gets overturned, that's beside the point. But it's, that is more strict, and those are taking care of things that we are all concerned with. What I kind of see is that everybody is focusing on the vision map, and I too share your concerns with the vision map. I don't like it. I don't think it is as succinct as it should be. It is a heat map design that is erroneous. I don't think that we need to completely throw out the baby with the bathwater just because of a faulty vision map. However, I think that we need to start focusing on how we can improve it and how we can amend this suggested plan to also encompass a lot of these concerns. I don't think a lot of these concerns that the citizens have been voicing at these meetings have been addressed. I want people to fully understand, though, that vision map does not change your existing property. It does not do it, not today, not tomorrow, not ever. And that misinformation keeps being said throughout this congregation. And I want you to understand it does not change it. That is something different that might come along with different zoning, but that is a different time that might happen. Other than that, there's other issues. People want about impact fees. We should have had impact fees 10 years before we had it. We're now paying for some of these issues that we didn't take care of 10 to 15 years ago. And we got to have some type of plan on moving forward. I'd like to see some improvements. I'm not completely sold on how we have this thing, but I want to see, and if Miss Janet can come up here, one question I want to ask her, and maybe this might be even administration, what are our methods on what we have to do when we want to see changes and improvements to this plan? How do we have that lined out?
Do you mean tonight or in the future?
Not necessarily just tonight, but even in the future.
So if you have a plan that's adopted and you want to change it in the future, it's a public hearing. You notice and have a public hearing on that, and ideally a meeting about the issue that you're beforehand.
But do we have that particular method in place now on how we go about changing the master plan?
Yes, it's a public hearing process.
Okay.
Yeah, that process can be conducted at a regular meeting of the Planning Commission, as long as it's an agendized item and there's a public notice.
Okay. Another thing that I've heard a lot of people talk about to me personally is they have a strong concern for, I think it's the orange part of the vision map and how it is it's not listing exact densities. I want people to understand this. It is a range, and that range, while we have zoning ordinances right now, we're going to maintain those same ordinances. Ordinances would have to be passed, which would have open meetings and discussion on, to increase and have stronger or higher densities. I, for one, am absolutely against any more density than the 3 per acre. I want that clear. So as long as I'm on that board, I would be against that, and I share your concerns. I think that we need to keep that an idea and make sure that we don't allow those to happen. Those are some of my main concerns. I'm going to let everybody else talk, but you all are being heard. There's a lot of not necessarily absolutely correct information, but there's a lot of things that we can all work on and work to improve this. I just ask for your patience.
All right, Mr. Chestnut.
I have a couple of questions on the details too, and I don't know if Jerome or Miss Janet or whoever y'all can tell me who would be the best to answer these. So, for example, when we're looking at the residential neighborhood classification, and just so everyone out there understands, so as I understand, what's going to happen is if we adopt it, this would be essentially just a guide, a vision plan, and then whenever someone comes up who wants to rezone a piece of property, that would go before planning and zoning, who would look at this map and determine if the proposed zoning change complies with the intent of what's in this map. Is that correct?
Well,
that's how that process works?
It's one of the things that you would consider, and that we make very clear that it is kind of the first blush, but there are the policies that some of which I read off earlier.
And all of that will be developed through a revision of the UDC, whether it's buffering specific housing types or densities, and all that stuff will be added later through the amendment of the Unified Development Code, right?
Yeah. If I might address something somewhat generalized, Mr. Chasson, is that with the zoning change, you as a body, as a planning commission, also sit as the zoning commission. When zoning changes come forward, they come to you, and you take action on those as a recommendation to the council. The council is the only body in the parish that can change the zoning. So you, as a body, make recommendations to the council to make zoning changes. So any change that might occur to the land use here as it relates to zoning will come before the zoning commission. That's you as a body sitting as a zoning commission. Then it's forwarded to the council for full action at the parish council level. All right.
And so when I'm looking at the residential neighborhood component, it says mixed lot sizes ranging from large lot to medium and small lot. And so that, to me, I'm seeing 3 different types of large lot, medium lot, small lot. Are you envisioning when we change the UDC to create these new zoning and development types, are those going to be 3 distinct different zoning classifications, a large lot, a medium lot, and a small lot, or is that going to be one zoning classification that's going to encompass all 3 of those?
No, you would have generally when you change your zoning ordinance, you want to retain what you have and just build on that other options. And so you would have similar, lot sizes that you have now, and then some options for specific areas. So the intent is really that you would evaluate, just like today, you evaluate the context and whether it's appropriate based on what the surrounding uses are. If you had another zoning district, which is just a tool in your toolbox, and something was appropriate, you could vote for it. If not, then you would vote against it. So,
and I guess what my concern is, some of the comments on Table 1, specifically with regards to like the Santa Madero area, where they're looking at putting in that areas that have now been listed as residential neighborhood. One example was the comment about everything east of 431. And I think the reason for not changing that, or stated reason for not recommending a change from residential to estate, was because, well, large lots are allowed in residential. While true, the problem is that also residential also encompasses medium and small. And I think the people in Santa Ma and those areas have been very clear throughout all of the meetings I attended that they don't want medium and small lot subdivisions in that part of the parish, which is still rural. And so while it's true residential may allow you to keep a large lot subdivision, it doesn't mandate it like it does in an estate subdivision classification. And so I think some of the concern from some of the people who live in those areas is, you know, at every meeting I've been to, people who live there have said, look, we want to preserve the rural character, at least in those areas. Look, Prairieville's beyond at this point. There is no rural left in Prairieville, and there's no way to get that back. I mean, that ship has sailed. But in the areas that still has rural, you know, to try to preserve that.
Matt.
So
everybody's had their opportunity to speak, sir. We're in the debate now. It's obviously a public hearing, but please maintain order throughout the debate.
So I guess my question is there any thought or any mechanism to go back and maybe look at those areas, specifically like Santa Ma east of 431 and some of the other suggestions that are listed as residential, and go ahead and change those to estate, since that seems to be the will of the people who live in those areas? Can we do that? And can we do that tonight?
Yeah, you can do, I mean, you can do whatever you want. The concern would be if there's lots that are smaller than an acre, and then, you know, we were trying to make things conforming as much as possible.
But that, like, you could do the same thing like you did in the rural, where you said we're going to go 1 per 5. But if you have a lot that is already existing that is less than 5 acres, well, we'll let you put 1 unit on it, but you can only have 1 unit. I mean, we could do the same thing and say that all of that area east of 431, we can change from that map 5.5 currently has listed as residential, we can change that to estate. But if there happens to be a parcel there that's less than 1 acre, well, you can put 1 unit on it. I mean, we could do the same type of exception you listed in rural residential open space with the residential neighborhood or the estate neighborhood in that section, right?
And actually, a change to this map doesn't change what you could build, because whatever you can build, whatever your zoning is today, is what they could do, no matter what.
Right, but that's the big issue. You know, the general public is just seeing a vision map, and the vision map has flaws. And so we're being asked to vote on something that we already know has some serious flaws on. You know, so that's what everybody's saying, and for the most of us agree.
So you're right. The map at this scale, at this level, it's intended to not recognize each individual piece of parcel. It's supposed to create a goal, an objective, you know, for a given geographic area. But at the same time, we have to be cognizant of the fact that, you know, there are going to be parcels in that area that are not going to meet that goal, because you know, you don't want to create nonconformities. What happens to areas such as the one that you're talking about is that we as a commission would then target that and say, we need to refine this area better. And you study that area, and you look at how that's going to do, so that when we write those ordinances and we recommend the change to the map, which is the map that's going to establish those densities to a specific piece of land, we send it as a recommendation to the parish council after having studied an area like that for those specific goals, which is what we're intending to do with this plan.
But I think the people who live in that area would feel more comfortable if we started off with the general, let's go with the least dense option. So let's say everything east of 431, let's start with the estate. Let's change it to yellow as estate. And then as we target down and drill down at specific parcels and say, okay, well, this section here, this little bubble should be residential because it's a lot of concentration already less than 1 per 1, then we'll go ahead and target and just revise that one section down to residential, rather than doing the whole section residential and then going in and trying to parcel out back to estate. To me, seems like the better option there.
But you're not changing anything. You're not changing. Tonight, it'll come up when the landowner says, well, I'd like to build an estate subdivision and brings it to us, and then we look at that as a guide, and we look at, I think, that map as one of the guides that we look at and say, okay, well, this is something we're going to recommend or not recommend. We could go estate or we could go residential, either way. But this is just the areas that are being targeted for that type of growth.
You're right.
So you're not bound by that map when a zoning it's not like we have to follow it or have to make a recommendation of it. It is the guiding principles of that.
But but the problem is by having it as
the public hearing comment is over. Please let us debate this.
By having it listed as residential, and then yes, so someone comes in and says, well, I want this to be rezone this residential, and we look at it and say, yeah, well, it's in that orange section, but it really should be yellow, so we're going to deny it or recommend denial. And they say, well, but this map has it listed as residential. As opposed to if we did it as yellow and then somebody came up and said, look, this one little patch, because of what's around it, would be better as residential. And we look at it and say, yeah, I mean, picking it out that way as opposed to telling the people who live in Santa Ma, we're just going to redistrict you as residential. And then if somebody comes and wants to do estate, well, yeah, we'll come back to and do it that way. I just think that comment seemed to be, and a lot of the comments on those specific areas, like someone said before, the previous master plan did say preserve the rural character as a guiding principle. That's not in this plan. And I get a large portion of the parish, that's not an option anymore, but some of it still is. And so those areas that are still capable of being rural, I think we should at least attempt, since that seems to be the wishes of the people who live in that area, to maybe revise this map a bit to have that as stay rural. And I think that's comments 2 and 3 and maybe comments 5 if my notes are correct under table 1. So what would be the process if we wanted to do something tonight with some changes? I know you've recommended some changes to the map that we would need to make before we could vote. Do we have to do those via like a motion, to amend the master plan, proposed master plan? How does that work? Because I know CPEX has at least one map change and then some other recommended in table 2 along with the other comments from table 2. What's the functional mechanism?
You could vote on, those, the 3 changes that we have plus any other changes y'all bring up individually, and then vote for the entire plan is usually how we handle that kind of action.
Okay.
And so if you want to make, along with whatever motion's made, a motion to change that area to yellow,
right?
Then we can do that.
So we can make a motion, vote on it, and then do whatever. If we have a couple of different things we want to tweak, we could make those motions. They pass or they fail. They pass or they fail, right. And then at the end we would vote on. Okay.
Or you can make it if there's, for example, a motion to approve the plan, you could make a substitute motion to approve the plan with the amendment of the map in the area that you're designating, changing to that yellow estate type.
I've got a couple of proposed amendments I'd like to look at. I think it'd probably be easier to just do them each individually rather than voting on a whole package of amendments at once. I mean, the ones from CPEX, I don't anticipate any objection to those particular ones. So those.
So you're going to make a motion on?
No, I mean, I don't know. Do you want us to do that now? You want to let everybody speak?
And then if anybody else wants to speak on this, I want to give them the opportunity to speak before we make motions. I'm just trying to figure out where you are if you want to go through all those first.
I can either tell you what they would be now, or we can let everybody speak, and then I could make my motions, and we can vote on them then. I'm fine. Whatever, you're running the meeting. Whatever you think would be the best way to do it. I do have a couple other questions I'd like to ask.
I want you to have your time.
Okay. The other thing is with regards to the estate subdivision classification, which is generally going to be 1 unit per acre, but then there's a line in here that says, as an option, this development type permits open space development where homes are located in small lot neighborhoods with common open space preserved in perpetuity. So I'm just curious about what we're envisioning here. Are we looking at still, the 1 per 1 density, just allowing that home sites to be built in such a way so that, okay, if I've got a 10-acre tract, I could either, rather than doing 10 1-acre lots with 10 houses, say I'm going to do 10 small lots on 2 acres and preserve in perpetuity the other 8 as open space? Or are we looking at these small lots as a way to increase that density beyond the 1 per 1?
No, it's exactly what you said. You have 50 acres, you have 50 units. If if everything's in place and it makes sense from an engineering and drainage and all that, then you would be able to put them, closer together and then preserve all the rest of the area.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I just wanted some clarification.
and again,
'cause-
that can't happen until your zoning ordinances are changed.
Well, right,
and then
because
if that has to get approved first.
And then, of course, the other issue is, and I've asked this question before, so if this gets approved tonight, and then I know I've been told it could take anywhere from 6 months to a year and a half to revise the UDC and our zoning ordinances, building ordinances, and everything else in order to comply with or to kind of flesh out the recommendations in this plan. During that time period, when we're presented with a proposed subdivision or lot build that looks like it would comply with this plan and the vision, but we do not currently have anything in our code that would address that or allow it to go forward. How do we, as a commission, move forward on something that if it comes forward and it's like, yeah, that's a great idea, that fits the plan, but our code doesn't currently allow it, but we will once we get to the point where this is revised? Like what would be the mechanism for dealing with that?
So I guess if I understand your question correctly, it's that if something in the code right now doesn't conform to the plan.
Yeah, right. Like, so say somebody comes up with one of these, say they have a nice 50-acre tract, they want to do this would be under a state, and you'd have, it fits this open development type, small lot type, where they want to do the 50 units on maybe 20 acres and preserve the other 30 as open space in perpetuity. And that fits with the plan, and we think it's a good design and it meets all these other requirements that satisfy the plan. But we currently have no provision in place in our zoning and code to actually allow it to go forward. How would they have to wait until the code's revised, or is there a mechanism in place to deal with that?
Well, actually, we do have a provision in the code right now that can address that, and that would be the PUD, the Plan Unit Development.
Okay.
And it allows flexibility in the zoning, and you could cluster development around, let's say, a little core area and leave the rest of it open space. That is certainly allowable under the PUD ordinance right now.
All right. And I guess Mr. Eddie with VTS, just as kind of an aside, actually I use you for my garbage because I got tired of Waste Pro not picking up my garbage. Since I've hired you to do it and your pickup happens to be the same day as Waste Pro's, used to be, I've watched Waste Pro pick up my garbage more now that I'm not paying them to pick it up because their truck gets to my house before yours does, apparently. So for whatever that's worth. But
right, you didn't realize you'd be getting this many endorsements tonight, so you came out good.
I can tell the customers when they call, say, Waste Pro picked my garbage up today, and I'm paying you. I said, I can't control Waste Pro.
No, you're right. They've picked my garbage up more that I'm not paying them to do it than when I did. So.
If your garbage is picked up, the lid is put back on your can, and your can is straightened up. It ain't thrown across the farm.
That is true. That is true. So. Yes, I mean, I don't know. Do you want me to just kind of run down what my proposed amendments would be, or now, or you want to wait and do them after everybody speaks?
I'll let you make the first motion on that.
Okay.
On the amendments.
All right.
So, how many are there?
Probably 1, 2, 3 or 4.
Okay. Mr. Christie.
Yes, my comments are, I'm really on board with these guys, with Wade and Jason, especially with the amendments. I feel much better about this now, especially if it answers the public is satisfied with it.
But they're not.
Yeah.
Anybody in here, maybe one person, y'all doing this, rural anywhere. That's right.
Well, I mean, if it's something that we can do under amendments, that we can amend to this, that would help your area. Well, yes, that's
Let him speak. Let him speak, please.
That's my intent, is to address your issues. And if we can do it under amendments to this plan, so be it.
Mr. Dumas.
You know, I only have one small amendment I'd like to make, and I think that however you want to do it, I'm ready to move forward and make a motion and get started.
Let's go with motions to.
Well, Mr. Bishop, does he want to talk?
Well, let's do this. Let's make a motion first. There's a number of amendments and notes, comments that were recommended by CPAC. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that
All right. We have a motion to accept the amendments proposed by CPEX here tonight. Do I have a second on that?
I second the motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition?
No.
Hearing none, motion passes. Mr.
No,
Chess?
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
As it stands, nay.
They were just dealing with the amendments to that
I'm
CPEX
sorry.
wanted.
No, that's fine.
Okay. So your vote is yes?
Yes.
And just to be clear, everybody votes yes to the CPEX amendments.
That's the map change in Table 1, the one map change in Table 1, and the changes recommended in Table 2, correct?
Yeah,
That's what we're talking about. Yes.
Yeah,
All right, Mr. Chasson.
Is there anything else, Janet?
In the new comment table in items 2 and 3,
Right.
that one also.
Okay. That's included in there. Okay. Mr. Chasson, your motion, your amendment motions.
All right. First, I would like to make a motion to amend the vision map to include all items east of Highway 431 that are currently listed on the vision map as residential neighborhood and change those to estate subdivision.
All right. We have a motion as stated by Mr. Chasson. Do I have a second? A second by Mr. Christie. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? We'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Dumas?
No.
Mr. Bishop?
No.
Mr. Christie?
Yes, I agree.
Mr. Chasson?
Yes.
Mr. Scheck-Snyder?
Yes.
And the chair will vote in favor. The motion passes 4-2. Next amendment.
Second, next proposed amendment would be to add as a guiding principle on page, where were the pages where the guiding principles would start on page 10, to preserve the rural character of the parish.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second, motion by Mr. Chasson, second by Mr. Scheck-Snyder. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes.
All right. Next motion would be on page 88 of the plan. I would make a motion to remove.
The garbage?
Yeah, it's bullet point.
Yeah. I think we all know what it is.
Bullet point 4 of strategy 13.2, dealing with establishing a franchise agreement for parish-wide garbage collection. Motion to remove that,
Motion by
just
Mr.
that bullet point.
Yeah, motion by Mr. Chasson, second by Mr. Christie and et al. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes.
You got more?
I don't know if you've got one, go ahead. I just need to look over my notes.
Honestly, I'm really against this part. Page 59, page 82 are the highlights on it. All discussions concerning neighborhood hubs. I'd like that removed from the master plan.
So you want to remove,
Neighborhood hubs as an option. I don't think it's necessary and it's not wanted.
all right, we got a motion by Mr. Scheck-Snyder on removal of neighborhood hubs. Do I have a second by Mr. Christie? All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition?
Me.
Two.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Dumas?
No.
Mr. Bishop?
No.
Mr. Christie? Mr. Chasson?
Yes.
Mr. Scheck-Snyder?
Yes.
Chair votes against, nay on that, so we have a tie, so I don't think that passes. Is that correct, O'Neill?
It's not passed.
Okay. Any other amendment motions to the thing?
I do have one question.
Yeah.
Is there a way that we can put a limit on the density in the unincorporated areas? Like in this master plan? That we can have a set limit? I mean, that's what a lot of people really are scared of. They were really worried about the density, potential densities.
I would think you could make an amendment to the residential neighborhood section to include a density if you wanted.
A maximum level density that, I mean, is that something that we can do, O'Neill? Can we put that in our?
That's gonna be in the zoning change, because the densities are set by zoning ordinance.
Right, but in our plan, can we make that recommendation in our plan that we do not want to have a zoning density greater than 3 per acre or anything like that? Can we have a way that we can have that as a strategy or anything like that?
It can be, you can make it as a strategy, but it's still a zoning issue. That's
Correct.
not a-
No, I understand. Then I would like to make an amendment that we incorporate as a strategy in our residential area that we do not exceed the current limit of 3 per acre for residential.
All right, motion by Mr. Schexnayder.
Second.
Second by Mr. Chasson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Do a roll call vote. Mr. Dumas.
No.
Mr. Bishop.
No.
Mr. Christie.
Aye.
Mr. Chasson.
Aye.
Mr. Schexnayder.
Aye.
Chair votes against, so that'd be another tie, 3-3, that does not pass. Okay. Any
Chair,
other? Yes.
I'd like to make a motion, if I may.
Okay.
There's a parcel of land on the West Bank that's got an industrial certificate on it, but it has a potential for other uses, including institutional and commercial and possibly some residential. I'd like to make a motion that the map, at least by note, designate that parcel may have other uses other than industrial.
All right. We have a motion by Mr. Dumas, second by Mr.
Where out of the map? Which part? Just so we know.
Where the river goes around. Like that.
It's one of the, it was, I think, number 8, was it?
Yeah. No, I know what he's talking about, but I want to make sure the record's clear which part he's proposing to amend.
In the A-band area?
In the A-band area.
Yeah, it was one of the, let me find the number of it so we can be explicit.
It's number 8, I believe, isn't
I
it?
think it was 8. 7. It's number 7.
Number 7, okay. Motion by Mr. Dumas, second by Mr. Bishop. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Any other amendment motions?
The other thing I had noted, and I don't know if we need to because we adopted the change comment, but I know someone made mention in one of the comments about the skate park, and then I think y'all amended to add in to include the skate park. I think the skate park is actually closed or is scheduled to be closed to make way for a community center, if I'm not mistaken. So I think we amended the plan to add that in, but I think it no longer exists. Is that right?
I think the one you're speaking about is in the city of Gonzales. Is it
Yeah.
not?
But it's still
and-
under parish control.
And where we're putting it is just we have an inventory of recreational facilities, and someone called us who works there and asked us to put it in. So it's just saying there is one in the parish, but it's not.
But I think it's closed now. I think the parish closed it. So you've added it as something that we have as recreation, but we don't actually have
we
it.
could take it out. I mean, it's a very minor change,
Yeah.
so whatever you want to do.
There are
with it's
plans
fine.
to relocate it.
Oh, well, we can leave it in. That's fine.
It would probably be best. to
All
leave
right,
it in.
any other amendment motions on the master plan?
So I would, at this point, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the resolution and plan with all of the amendments that we've priorly approved.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Dumas, second
Second.
by Mr. Bishop. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposition?
Aye.
I would do a roll call vote. Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bishop?
Yes.
It was a motion to adopt the master plan as amended through the various amendments. Mr. Christie? Mr. Christie? Aye. Mr. Chasson?
Yes.
Mr. Schexnayder?
Yes.
All right, the chair votes in favor, so the vote's unanimous, and the master plan as amended is adopted tonight. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Meeting adjourned.